Hello, Amy and Patrick. First, thank you for your insight and guidance through this course as we learned about data collection and data analysis. I've learned so much from each of you that I will take with me as I look for ways to improve professional development training for the veterans I serve. As you know, I look for a correlation between transformational leadership style and volunteers leading volunteers in a nonprofit membership organization. There are two important distinctions in this study that need to be highlighted up front that puts data into context. First, this study differs from most leadership studies in that it focuses on volunteer leaders, not paid staff, in a nonprofit membership organization leading other volunteers. The second is that both the leader and the volunteer join the membership organization and pay dues ranging from $30 to $55 per year to belong. While the dynamics of this study parallel many of those in the literature I used, these distinctions most certainly need further study, particularly given that in 2017, 25.1% of the U.S. population were volunteers. Future studies need to focus on those nonprofit membership organizations where volunteers lead volunteers to determine what leadership style lends itself to higher member satisfaction, role identity, and intent to remain a member. That's 82.7 million members who look to find satisfaction or purpose in their volunteer activity, or they simply move on to another organization to find it. To use a military term, we can teach those leaders how to be successful in battle, but we need to turn our focus on teaching them how to lead volunteers in battle. As a researcher, I sought to ensure that bias was not a factor in this action research project. However, it should be noted that I am a paid-up-for-life member of this membership organization, having served in senior positions at the local, state, and national levels for more than 44 years. It should also be noted that there were casual interactions in the past with some participants in this study. However, those past interactions did not influence their responses to this research question. This study aimed to illustrate the assertion that transformational leadership impacts a volunteer member's intent to remain by providing stability and growth to the organization. Additionally, this study established the point of view of the volunteer leader on transformational leadership characteristics and whether, in their opinion, they might employ the characteristics of a transformational leader to achieve the organization's mission through professional development and growth. The project sought to develop professional training designed to improve community service, member satisfaction, role identity, and retention as a member of the organization. The organization at the state level does a great job in preparing its volunteers for the roles they have been elected or appointed to serve. The current curriculum is divided into a basic course, an intermediate course, and an advanced course, and each year new leaders seek out these courses as a way to learn new methods to make a difference in their community. In some ways, it's a form of networking among other leaders in their field. This action research expects to identify the leadership style that best suits those leaders and to focus teaching and learning on how to improve those skills. Again, in military terms, the organization has done a great job of training our volunteers in basic leadership strategies and tactics, but now we need to teach them how to lead to ensure growth and development. So this brings me to the research question. Is there a correlation between transformational leadership style and volunteers leading volunteers in a nonprofit membership organization? That is, does transformational leadership style, when volunteers lead volunteers, increase member satisfaction, organizational commitment, role identity, and intent to remain? Transformational leaders encourage member satisfaction, which in turn increases organizational commitment, which leads to increased volunteers taking on new roles in the organization and ultimately lead to an increased intent to remain. This project focused on a small single sector of a membership organization serving veterans and their communities in southwestern Wisconsin. This organization operates entirely as a volunteer membership organization with no paid employees at this level. The nonprofit membership district consists of 5,455 volunteers organized into 62 local groups geographically dispersed throughout the state Southwest. Each group has an organizational requirement of an equivalent title and role of a group president and secretary. The diversity chart was included in the report, but the demographic data was so small it was not triangulated with the research data for any analysis. Each study group member received an email invitation to participate in the online survey that was posted and available for about 21 days, with reminders sent to all invitees on the second and third days, and additional reminders were brought up by the commanders at their meetings. The informed consent was presented on the first page of the online survey, and the participant could not see the questions until they agreed to the terms and then pressed the Start Survey button. This simple survey did not involve emotional or highly personal content, and the data was collected anonymously and posed no conceivable risk to the participants. Respondents in this survey represented several levels of leadership within the local organization: a post commander, a post adjutant, and other former leaders. The cutoff point for transformational leadership characteristics was 4.0. Table 2 shows that post commanders perceived their leadership as being transformational in 3 of the 7 characteristics: openness to new thinking, willingness to accept responsibility, and trust in team members. However, they did not show tendencies towards transformational leadership in the remaining 4 characteristics of talent for broadening minds, commitment to active listening, tolerance for intelligent risk, and ability to inspire participation. It's important to note that if you break out the study by individual questions, post commanders demonstrated transformational leadership characteristics in 10 of the 16 questions. So post adjutants perceived their leadership slightly differently, as their tendencies lean toward just 2 of the 7 transformational leadership characteristics: openness to new thinking and commitment to active listening. They do not demonstrate tendencies towards transformational leadership in the remaining 5 characteristics, which were talent for broadening minds, tolerance for intelligent risks, willingness to accept responsibility, trust in team members, and ability to inspire participation. It's important to note that if you break out the study by individual questions for post adjutants, they demonstrated transformational leadership characteristics in only 5 of the 16 questions. So Table 4 shows the former leaders matching post commanders and assessing their transformational leadership style. Former leaders identified as being transformational leaders in 4 of the 7 characteristics: openness to new thinking, commitment to active listening, willingness to accept responsibilities, and trust in team members. However, they did not show tendencies towards transformational leadership in the remaining 3 characteristics: talent for broadening minds, tolerance for intelligent risks, and ability to inspire participation. It's important to note here as well that if you break out the study by individual questions, former leaders demonstrated transformational leadership characteristics in 12 of 16 questions. So let's look at the aggregate. The combined total mean scores of transformational leadership characteristics for the aggregate sample of post commanders, post adjutants, and former leaders of the Veteran Service Organization, their overall scores demonstrated their tendencies to lean towards just 3 of the 7 transformational leadership characteristics: openness to new thinking, commitment to active listening, and willingness to accept responsibility, all scored above the 4.0 benchmark. They did not, however, demonstrate tendencies towards transformational leadership in the remaining 4 characteristics of talent for broadening minds, tolerance for intelligent risks, trust in team members, and ability to inspire participation, where participants' score fell below the 4.0 benchmark. It's important to note here as well that if you break out the study by individual questions together with post commanders, post adjutants, and former leaders, they demonstrated transformational leadership characteristics in just 9 of the 16 questions. It has been shown to affect outcomes in nonprofit membership organizations. The evidence is clear that there is a correlation between leadership styles and tactics when working with volunteers in nonprofit membership organizations. These findings demonstrate that overall satisfaction within the organization is a predictor of an individual's commitment, and together, satisfaction and organizational commitment predict role identity, just as demonstrated in ALMAS in 2020. Role identity is the most consistent judge of a volunteer's commitment to remain a member. Nonprofit membership organizations rely on volunteers, and volunteers unwittingly rely on nonprofits for social emotional support through their activities. Transitioning to a focused and purposeful professional development curriculum designed to help leaders at every level of the nonprofit membership organization will put them on a path to growth. The study shows us that these leaders have basic leadership skills that they brought with them from their military service, but lack a rudimentary knowledge of how to apply these skills when leading volunteers. Simple curriculum modifications can address these basic skills needed to transition these good leaders to exceptional leaders who can grow and develop themselves and grow and develop those they lead. If developed to grow new and existing leaders, these new professional development curriculum can grow members who are satisfied, committed, and highly likely to remain a member. The focus moving forward needs to be on curriculum mapping and the learning outcomes expected of our current and future leaders and those looking for the right organization to share their talents. Transformational leaders encourage innovative thinking, build positive relationships, model a vision for the organization, and model expectations for its volunteers. Every nonprofit organization becomes more vital and relevant when its leaders get better at leading. Continued professional development is a critical ingredient in the organization's growth. Volunteers are attracted to nonprofits that meet their needs, but their intent to remain dwindles when their needs are not readily met. Grimm and Dietz in 2018 argued that volunteering promotes strong emotional, mental, and even physical health, encourages other types of civic participation, discourages antisocial behavior, and promotes socioeconomic achievement, especially by encouraging educational advancement among high school and college students. The study group of just 48 participants out of 101 invited leaders is just a small sample of the organization's worldwide presence. In total, there are more than 2 million members in the organization with more than 12,000 local posts and countless other counties, districts, and state leaders. With more than 4 new leaders being elected or appointed to new roles every other year, that leaves professional development an important element in the success of the organization. There's an opportunity for the organization to grow and develop more than 48,000 leaders every 2 years. Using technologies developed and expanded during the pandemic, the organization has the opportunity to grow teaching and grow learning worldwide that touches every aspect of their core beliefs. Virtual classrooms reduce bottlenecks in teaching and learning, and the organization is in a perfect season to overcome them. The organization gets better when leaders become better at leading.